Well, welcome to Integrated Health of Indiana's 7 o'clock talk. And tonight we're going to be talking about chronic infections. And so there are so many things about this that we could talk about. We could talk about biofilms. We could talk about blood sugar. We could talk about insulin. We could talk about other infections. What else? Could talk about food. You're having all kinds of fun with your. She got a CGM again, and so she's playing with it. What has been your most stunning? So, how does sugar relate to chronic infections? Sugar will suppress your immune system for 6 to 8 hours. So it doesn't matter if you're thinking of sugar like ice cream or a candy. No, you also have to think of sugar as bread because that's what bread turns into. What have you found the most amazing thing with your CGM? What's been your test?
What have I tested? I tested things that I don't typically eat. I've tested McDonald's coffee. It was coffee. It didn't really do much. Um, Second day old watermelons made my blood sugar alarm. I always have my amino acids and all my hormones and things I don't like in a little bitty glass of lemonade to make it palatable. I didn't drink a whole cup like that.
I know. I'm just saying.
It was a little like maybe 2 ounces, three at the most, of Simply lemonade, which is supposed to have nothing but pure cane, and it's supposed to be real fruit juice. That didn't. I wouldn't say spiked it, but it did alarm it.
I was gonna say it alarmed it.
Um, I went to the Haas's Coffee House today. So the things that have spiked my blood sugar the most have been coffee syrup, which I don't use coffee. I don't make coffee syrup. I don't use coffee syrup in my own coffee from home. So I just happened to, Trevor wanted a coffee. So that was the only place that we could get coffee. So I didn't even finish it. Actually, it made my blood sugar go up. And I had that coffee at 10 o'clock. I bought it. I was still drinking it at 11 o'clock. Stopped and my blood sugar went up and stayed up until I took 2 berberine and I went on a bike ride. That was so I just had that at 10 o'clock. It made my blood sugar stay high all day.
The most stunning thing was
trying to think what
one.
Oh, it actually did spike it. It didn't drop it, but it did spike it. One single piece of candy corn. My blood sugar went from like 102 to 150 something. And that's anything in a bag is toxic as far as I'm concerned. I really believe it should be criminal.
So when we're talking about chronic infections, sinusitis, Lyme, the pandemic, hanging out, and UTIs. On UTIs, I think a little differently. On UTIs, I start to think about the microbiome more. There's so many studies and a lot of research coming out now that are showing that UTIs are linked to loss of healthy bacteria, both in the gut and in the urogenital tract.
And for females, it's a loss of estrogens.
And hormones affect it. So you got to think about when you have these things affecting you. What are you perfectly healthy? Number one. If you're not perfectly healthy and if you're overweight, then you have to think about body fat creates cytokines, which increases inflammation, which stresses the immune system.
And it also creates hormones.
Its own hormones. And then when you start to look at these types of things, especially like think about Lyme. A lot of people, Lyme does nothing to. And they don't get Lyme. They don't, their immune systems handle this. But when you talk to people who have issues with Lyme, all of a sudden they have all these other little things going along with it.
Well, and if you're not sure if you have Lyme or not, the testing is pricey and it's not accurate a lot of times. But Lyme is the only disease that cycles. So if you're always cycling around the same symptoms over and over and over and over again, you might want to think like maybe I have Lyme.
You have Lyme and or biofilms. But the things that Lyme causes also cause biofilms. And so it's a kind of a chicken or the egg. What came first? So chronic infections, sinusitis, Lyme. I start to think, when I think about sinusitis, I start to think about food sensitivities, mostly dairy. Most people can eliminate dairy, and if they eliminate all dairy, all of a sudden their sinusitis starts to clear up. And that's most common. But there are some people who will carry these other infections and say the microbiome's not good, say your firmicutes is high, then you're going to be more pro-inflammatory. And so the immune system gets wore down. And these are all things that you have to think about. But right now, I mean, I'm very convinced, and I would say that she's very convinced, that the number one cause of all of our chronic diseases is just our crappy food system. The amount of stuff that they put into foods,
Yeah, I wouldn't even call it food. I don't think you can even label it as food.
edible stuff, shouldn't be edible, but it is. I mean, for those of you that are watching this, the book Good Energy starts out on this very well, and they talk about how the tobacco companies started out, and when they started to get blowback or pressure back from the government, they pivoted. And then what they did was they bought a lot of the food companies, and they took their scientists from the tobacco industry and put them into the food industry. You want to see some really weird things? Look up, just YouTube search Bliss Point, YouTube search high fructose corn syrup, search sugar, the bitter truth. We eat so much sugar. Our baseline health is so crappy in America. It's criminal. When we go to the Ignite Columbus, my 5 slides are on baseline health. And the thing we have to think about is, during the pandemic, and I've said this over and over and over again, we are 4% of the world's population. We were 70% of the deaths, is what it's starting to show now. There were 7 million deaths. We were 1.2 million of the deaths. And then below that, India comes in behind us at 500,000 deaths. And so when the CDC went in to go look at this and they said, hey, what's going on? They found that there were 3.8 comorbidities per American. So that means that not only did you have the virus, a lot of people had high blood pressure, a lot of people had diabetes, a lot of people had metabolic syndrome, whatever the case may be. Maybe they had pulmonary issues, maybe they had cardiovascular disease, whatever the case is. And these are all still underlying. There is one metric that I show in this slideshow that has the 11 most advanced countries. And in every metric except for administration, thank you, nurses, for saving us in that one, we're 11th. In the way that healthcare is administered, we're actually second. So that tells you how sick we are and what differentiates us from so many other countries. Our food system. Our food system is not allowed to go to other places. They don't allow the colorings, they don't allow the chemicals, and these really tax our system. And when you start taxing the system in every way imaginable, bogging down the liver, um, screwing up the microbiome, screwing up the hormones. We don't get any sleep in America. We are stressed out of our minds because we're chasing the almighty dollar and the next best thing. This all just suppresses the immune system. It wears the body down. And when this happens, then all of these opportunistic things like sinusitis, like Lyme disease, like long haulers and UTIs, they all get to come and roost. And a lot of that's due to lifestyle. And you add in the food system, and it is just, well, we are the absolute poster child for what that does because America has the world's worst health of the most advanced countries. And we spend 2 times the amount of money the other countries do on health. So it's an incredibly horrible place to be. Metric, I should say. I love being in America. I love our freedoms, and I love that we can argue and fight and still be friends. But there is an insidious evil component that is allowed to be in our grocery stores, basically, that is slowly killing us. Most other countries, what's the health curve in most other countries? How's it go? They go until they're 80, 70, 80, 90, and then they just die.
Well, they don't have the systems that we have because they don't need them.
That's
Like
true.
they don't have like they don't have their old people living in homes with chronic illnesses. They're still a part of the family doing their chores until they're gone. Like the only America does this. But
Well, and
I am convinced that food is not even real food unless you've grown it and picked it yourself. It's criminal. It's actual poisons.
so in most other countries, if you look at somebody being born, then they get to about age 25, and then they hold that actual production. Most other countries till they're in their 80s, and then they die.
Yeah, they don't have the chronic illnesses that
In America,
America have.
we peak at 25, and then it's just this low, slow, drawn out slide into the grave.
But we have 6-year-olds with chronic illnesses. 6-year-olds.
So,
Which they are patients for life.
when Haley picked this out and I looked at this, I kind of giggled. No, it's like, oh, this is such a loaded question and thing. And yeah, people are going to think we're nuts and conspiracy theorists and stuff, but it's what's playing out, really, and it's sad.
And you talk about chronic infections. What do you get when you go to the doctor for an infection? You get an antibiotic, and the antibiotic kills off bacteria. Some of those bacteria are good, and then you get yourself into a self-perpetuating cycle.
And you're not told to eat fermented foods. You're not told to eat good yogurt.
And pickles don't count as fermented foods because pickles aren't actually, they're pickled, not fermented.
So let's just say something. Pretty much if you buy something and it has a UPC code on it and a list of ingredients, it's crap. Yogurt, if you're buying Yoplait, it's crap.
We're going to figure out how to make our own yogurt.
You just use those cultures. We have the cultures. We've made kefir.
But there's an easy way to actually make your yogurt, and it's supposed to taste good. But we make our own nut butters. We make all of our own almond milks. We're going to figure that out, because even when you buy the healthy brands, look at the labels. they always have soy lecithin, guanthum gum, or something stupid. And I'm for certain that's for shelf life, but your dairy products shouldn't be lasting more than a week in your refrigerator. They should go bad.
They're stabilizers and emulsifiers. And the other thing to think about emulsifiers, and this is where foods, when you eat those creamy things that are rich and decadent, so they've taken fat and they keep fat from getting hard and it's smooth, that uses emulsifiers. Inside your gut is a slime layer that is primarily fat. And if you're eating these things, you're breaking that down. So that's, I guess, as depressing as I want to be for the day. You all have a great evening, and we'll see you next week.